What's good, everybody? It's your boy Rob back with another video. I'm here to talk with you about my experience with the iPhone 12 Pro Max within the last couple of weeks. Now, let's state the obvious that this is a very large phone, and it may not be for everybody who are looking at an iPhone as a purchasing option. But if you have small, mid-sized hands, I would most definitely recommend the more smaller version of this phone. I do enjoy the build quality of this phone. The glass front and back, stainless steel sides, squared off is a nice classic look. And I really don't have any problems with it, but there are those who out there who find it a little uncomfortable to hold this phone. I don't have that problem with it. Actually, I actually enjoy the form factor. I do enjoy the flat display, which makes it easier to type on its surface. But there are those out there who like to use swipe keyboards. And for example, if you're using a swipe keyboard, you may find it hard to do your swipe typing with this keyboard due to the fact that you may have smaller hands. And to a certain extent, I do find some difficulty in using those features in my favorite keyboard, and do find myself having to type with two hands. But I don't see that as a problem. I'm not really in that much of a hurry when it comes to typing. When it comes to watching multimedia on this phone, I really enjoy it. The display is really great. It is tuned in a way where the colors aren't too punchy, but at the same time, it is an enjoyable experience. I've also do like the stereo speakers that's on board, which is makes the sound a little bit more richer when you're not using headphones. But for the most part, everybody use headphones, so I don't know how much of a factor dual speakers actually play into people buying phones these days. But if it's important to you, these are a high quality pair of speakers on this phone. I do wish this phone did have a high refresh rate, but I think once Apple learns how to get the most out of a battery and a high refresh rate on their phones, it'll probably be a while before we see that on an Apple device. The cameras on the back, the module is much bigger. Well, not much bigger, but a little bit bigger than last year's model. So you're gonna, it's gonna be a little bit more of a rocking feature if you're dealing with a smaller phone. But when you place it on a table, this large phone, even though it does have a larger camera back, it doesn't rock as much as long as you're typing at the lower portion of it. The higher up you go as far as doing things with the phone, the more rocking you get. But when you're typing from a lower point of view, the rocking is almost non-existent when it comes to using this large phone. I think you would get more rocking with a smaller iPhone, but I don't have a smaller one to put that to the test. All I can tell you is about my experience when it comes to typing on a flat surface using this phone. Now, real talk, if you got the previous iPhone 11 or even going back to the 10, I would not recommend actually updating. The Apple A14, 13, and the previous generation chips, there's very minimal difference in the speed, how fluid it is, and you probably wouldn't even notice if you're the average everyday consumer. So don't get wrapped up into those type of specs. There is some slight improvements in the camera, but real quick, let me go over some of the differences between the 12 Pro Max and the 11 Pro Max. Now, this phone does weigh a little bit more than the 11 Pro Max. This phone weighs in at 8.04 ounces, whereas the 11 Pro Max is 7.97 ounces. So that's really a slight difference in the weight of it. I think the square build makes the phone feel a little bit more heavier, or give you the impression of a heavy feel. This phone is IP68 dust resistant as well as the 11 Pro, but you can drop this one in up to 6 meters of water, whereas the 11 Pro Max was up to 4 meters. Again, it does have a slightly higher, taller display, but the phone produces the same PPI as the 11 Pro Max at 458. Now, where you see a difference is the start when it comes to internal storage. Now, the 11 Pro Max had a starting point at 64 gigabytes as a starting point when it comes to their storage, whereas the 11 Pro Max starts in at 128, which was something Apple needed to do, especially when you putting the name Pro on your phone. You shouldn't be starting in at 64 gigabytes, especially when you're offering things like 4K shooting at 24, 30, and 60 frames per second. There's no way in the world you should be doing that. There's not much difference in the front-facing camera. The front-facing camera is exactly the same as last year's model. It's a 12 megapixel one. The only difference when it comes to the cameras in the back is they're all the same sensors. It's just that the aperture rating they're slightly different, and they're not really that much noticeable. This was a 1.6 aperture rating, where the last year was at 1.8. So there's really not a difference as far as the camera. The only difference is that 3D LiDAR scanner that's on the back of the 12 Pro, and the fact that the 12 Pro can shoot 10-bit HDR Dolby Vision up to 60 frames per second. So keep that in mind. There's that 10-bit HDR is a useless, I guess, feature for the average everyday consumer when it comes to those who are interested in the Pro model. So you really shouldn't be worried about that when it comes to making your purchase decision on what phone you want to buy. Now, the battery, there is a slight difference, but again, you can get through a whole day with this phone without actually needing to recharge. And I usually get 4 or 5 hours of screen on time easily with this phone. This one does have a 3,687 milliamp battery on board, whereas the 11 Pro Max had a 3,969 milliamp battery. Now, there is a minimal difference in the charging wattage of this phone. 20 watt fast charging, whereas 11 Pro had an 18 watt fast charging. Now, there is that Q magnetic fast wireless charging, which goes up to 15 watts, but the 11 Pro, you can key wirelessly charge, You can key wirelessly charge the 11 Pro, but it's at a much slower rate. But other than that, those just a real quick rundown of the differences between the 12 Pro and 11 Pro. It's not that much. It's really not that much for you to make that move, unless you're a real, hardcore tech head who likes to have the latest and greatest. If that's the case, and you got the cash to do it, hey, more power to you. Who am I to tell you what to buy and what not to buy? So that pretty much does it for the first, I guess, couple of weeks with the iPhone 12 Pro Max. If you have any questions, please leave those down below. Please give this video a thumbs up. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate those who have and who have stuck by me and supported my channel. I truly appreciate you so much. Thank you. Other than that, I'll catch everybody in the next video. I'm out.